Okay. Thank you. Hey guys, thank you for coming. You're going to stand, Lenny? You're more comfortable? Cool. Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate. Hey, everybody signed in? Yes. Yes. Cool. So as always, I want to say thank you. It takes, you're taking time out of your day. Taking time out of your day to be here. It's a half an hour of time, especially around dinner time, that you are sacrificing to be here, and I appreciate that. One of the big things that we always talk about is being here. You can ask me questions afterwards. You can ask me questions while you're here if something crops up. It gives you some personal time while you're here, as opposed to being online. If you are online, please look in the comments section after this and fill out the questionnaire or the survey so we get your feedback so we can try to improve things. But ultimately, I don't have this high-tech gadgetry. I just use a phone and a microphone. So, so those are the big things that we'll look at. So having said that, we're going to be talking about chiropractic then and now and the differences and things that have gone on. And one of the things is I want to get a little bit of your feedback on what you think chiropractic is, and where things what it means to you maybe, and why you actually showed up in this office. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where it originated and understand how it went through a lot of phases in order to be where it is today, accepted in a sort of small circle of understanding for a lot of people, but how it can actually you can help you express major health through taking care of your spine. We have a quote up on the wall that by Hippocrates, and everybody has ever all heard of the Hippocratic Oath. First do no harm. Well, Hippocrates said also to find the cause of disease, or I'm paraphrasing, is look to the spine to find the cause of disease. So this was a gentleman thousands of years ago that was saying, hey, we should be looking at this from a different perspective. Having said that, what does chiropractic mean to you? What brought you guys to the office? Anybody want to just shout out? Anybody? Pain relief, right? Okay. So pain is what brought most people into the office, yes? Okay. So pain is a very small part of what our nervous system and neurology actually perceives. Okay, about 90% of our nervous system is actually functionality. You sitting here breathing, digesting your food, being able to listen, being able to hear, see, all of that stuff is controlled through the nervous system. Being able to sit upright, all those muscles are. So about 90% of the body is actually the function of the body. Pain receptors is only about 10% of the receptors in the body. And having said that, that's what a lot of people base their health on, right? They look at pain, if I'm out of pain, I'm healthy. That's not necessarily the truth, okay? Because you can be out of pain and still be very unhealthy. But that's for another workshop per se. What else? Anybody else? Did anybody else come? Go ahead, Don.
Well, it started, my wife came because of pain.
Uh-huh.
And she kept telling me about what she did for her and the pain.
Right.
Because I don't have any pain. Well, in talking to Dr. Sam, he told me about the other things instead of pain.
Yes.
So, I was dealing with that stiffness in the neck.
Mm-hmm. The stiffness,
So
right?
that's one thing. And how about colds and so forth? Yeah, that could help too. So that's how I ended up here. And since I've been going to you, I don't think I've had a cold so far since I've been coming.
Okay.
Well, that's connected. I do not know.
Well, so there are studies that show that chiropractic helps to boost immunity, and your wife initially came for discomfort, and then she stopped coming for a bit, and then she realized, and she had said to me, she goes, when I was under care with you, I never had a cold. And you're saying that since you've been coming that you haven't had a cold. So there is something to that in boosting the immune function. Doesn't mean it's the cure for cold, no. But this is a perfect segue into how and where chiropractic started. But a lot of everything is based on this one thing, pain. And it's not really a good choice in judging your health per se. Go ahead.
To maintain my career.
To maintain your career. Okay, so, and do you mind sharing what you do? dental hygienist. And as a dental hygienist, you're bent over people at a specific angle. You're being able, and you understood coming from the dental world, you understand that maintaining your structure and maintaining your spine was going to help you be better off while doing those things. Go ahead, Brian.
So for me, it was just trying to do the right thing. I mean, I understand the
Do the right thing.
nutritional part.
Right.
This other part, I can understand. I had really no pain
Right.
when I came, so basically, I'm just looking to correct things before I have pain. Just like I say, just do the right thing.
So.
My body as healthy as it can be.
Right, so to keep your body healthy, and that's it initially, and we're going to step into, like I was saying, we're going to step into that realm and understanding that because, yes, you do have a very, very huge understanding of the nutritional because of what the business that you run, okay? You know, Johnson's Golden Harvest, all locally farmed foods, local foods, you support that, and you understand that eating well that way has helped you, and because of that, you don't have as much discomfort, and that's not really the reason you came here. You just understood that I have to make sure in order to stay healthy was part of the things that you should do. I mean, am I understanding that correctly? That's correct. Okay. Anybody else? Someone else said?
Improved range of motion.
Improved range of motion, right? Right. So, you know, you have, and the thing is, you know, not naming names, but improving the range of motion is important in our health and our life because we need to have full range of motion. A lot of the times you'll go into physical therapy or they'll send you to physical therapy and say you have a problem with your shoulder, okay? And, you know, you're able to lift your arm this high and then, you know, then you get about this high, but the pain is gone. So what happens at that point? They dismiss you from care because there's no pain and they say you've gone as far as you can. But this is not healthy. This is not normal. Normal is being able to bring it all the way up. Okay, so there's a difference between the concepts. So improving that range of motion is very, very, very important. And people are starting to understand those things. So having said that, chiropractic many years ago, I mean, the history, oh, it's still there. And everybody, thank you for doing this, whoever did this, for what you were thankful for, because this is awesome. This is great. I really appreciate you guys sharing. Chiropractic originally started in 1895. Hey, Michael, just grab a table. You can sign in afterwards. It started in 1895, and in 1895, a gentleman by the name of D.D. Palmer. I always D.D. as dad. Okay, B.J. Palmer was the son. Had a gentleman that came to his office. He was a magnetic healer. And back then that was a very popular thing, sort of like healing by hands-on energies, things of that nature. And he was doing that for about 10 years, but this gentleman explained to him that one day he was bent over, he was a janitor in the building where he worked, felt something pop in his back, and what ended up happening is he lost his hearing. Okay? So what ended up happening was, Dr. Palmer, D.D. Palmer, said, hey, let's deduce maybe there's something wrong with his back. He palpated his spine, felt through his spine, adjusted it, and the way they explain it, it sounds horrible. They say he racked the bone back into place. Okay, could you imagine? Does anybody want to be racked back into place? Absolutely not. But the guy got up off the table and was able to hear the clock ticking, which he couldn't hear before. So he regained his hearing. So back then, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, not understanding all of the things that were going on, he thought, hey, I have the cure. I have the cure for deafness, right? But the true fact of the matter is, it was about how your body responds and how your body actually reacts to things. Why do I tell this story? Because what happens when something like that is done, people are like, I don't believe it. Or I don't, this can't be possibly true. But there was a lot that had to go into figuring out what chiropractic was about, right? So in the early 1900s, they established the school in Iowa, the Palmer Chiropractic. His son and him didn't get along, but his son took over the school, and I mean, there's a whole. And then his father opened up another school, and there's a lot that goes on in history. But that's not why we're really here. Just so you have a base understanding. That's when the school. That's when the school started. So ultimately, there was something going on here, and it was new to the quote-unquote health paradigm, or the medical paradigm, looking for another way to heal. And when you have something that's a truth, that's something that works, right? What are the 3 steps a truth may go through? Does anybody know that? Does anybody ever heard about that? There's 3 things. There was a gentleman by the name of Schopenhauer, I believe is the way they pronounce his last name. And he said that all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. So obviously, he didn't have the cure for hearing or deafness, but it was ridiculed. Like, oh, that's new. It doesn't work, right? Has anybody ever experienced that? Like when something new comes along, everybody is like, oh, that's full of malarkey or whatever it is. Okay, and you can insert whatever word you want in that place, in that. But people say, oh, that's not true, or it's ridiculed, right? Then it's violently opposed. So you get violent opposition to certain things. You get violent opposition to the things. Oh, that's not possible. And we're going to go through how that happened with chiropractic and an understanding, because originally there was a lot of things that were brought up against chiropractic to try to discredit it. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of those things. And then third, it's accepted as being self-evident. We're still working on that. But a lot of people, you included, are here because there was a reason. But the self-evidence that brought you here was pain. Okay, and that's sort of where it's been pushed into in an understanding of chiropractic is for, it's good for. So what's happening is we do a workshop on this, the difference between a manipulation and an adjustment. Okay, people are like, oh, other people can manipulate the spine. But my question is, do you want someone who's only got 30, 40 hours of learning how to manipulate a spine, or do you want someone that has 1,200 hours doing it? There's a difference in the way you do it. Hundreds of thousands, and millions of people over the years have gotten adjusted since then. And the people that usually get hurt when they're adjusted, they are manipulated. They just get general motion, and there's something wrong with the way it's done. It's not specific. It's not scientific. So you have to understand that there is something that goes along with that, and that's why when I approach it from a standpoint of biophysics and biomechanics, but also understanding that each one of you are different. So your stress and the way your body responds is going to be different for each one. So you have to take into consideration the clinical aspect of it, right? This is what a truth goes through, and this is what chiropractic on. So, come on. So, a history. So, in 1847, the American Medical Association was formed, right? And that was funded by the Rockefellers. Everybody knows who the Rockefellers are, right? Okay. In 1849, there was a public advisory board. In 1910, this is an interesting stat, 392 chiropractic schools and 76 medical schools. Now there's, I think, about 20 chiropractic schools. And some of them are part of universities and stuff. So, I mean, so there's not many, okay? So think about that. There was this big push for chiropractic and schools. And back then, obviously, the degrees were done differently. Okay, most people don't understand. Like, you could go to medical school without a 4-year degree if you can get the grades and the prereqs and get in. But most people understand that they need a 4-year degree to get accepted into the school. Okay, it's becoming like that for chiropractic too. When you go in, most people have a 4-year degree before they get there. Okay, so it's important that you do these things. And in the comparison nowadays, this was not comparison then. But the comparison nowadays, the education in number of hours is quite different, because there are different things that chiropractically you focus on, and different things that they focus on in the medical field. And in the medical field, they're looking more at pharmacology, things of that nature, because that's one of their first lines of defense, is to give you a medication. Okay, that's what they're taught. But there's a difference of about 400 hours between the education, between what a chiropractor learns at about 2,400 hours of education, as opposed to about 2,000 hours of education for the medical field. And the comparisons are here. You have these handouts that get sent to you electronically. And if you want an actual handout, just ask Marie and she can print one for you. Okay, but we've tried to do a lot of this stuff electronically now, so we can save the planet, so to speak. But so then we have what we call the Iowa plan, and I'll explain that in a second. In 69 to 80, there were books that were put into the medical schools to discredit chiropractic. And then there was a lawsuit in 1976 brought up by Chester Wilk versus the AMA for collusion. And then Wilk actually won the verdict in the 80s. So we're going to go a little bit through that. So I'm going to point out, there's a lot written on here. But ultimately, I'm going to point out the specifics so you understand. 132-page document to aid the court. The Iowa Plan section, what medicine should do about the chiropractic menace. That's what they called it. Okay, so now look back. This was back in 1962 when they started this, right? So this is 70 years or so, right? 1895, about 68, 67 years after. And because they started seeing a threat. So it was the chiropractic menace. So we were the villain. Okay, we were the villain. So they were the superheroes and we were the villains, right? Okay, so this is the way this is the way they portrayed it, right? So here, the policy of containment. So ultimately, what they did is they wanted to contain this profession, undertake a positive program of containment. Encourage ethical complaints against doctors of chiropractic, oppose chiropractic inroads into health insurance, oppose chiropractic inroads in workers' compensation, oppose chiropractic inroads into labor unions and hospitals, and contain the chiropractic schools. As early as September 1963, the AMA's objective was the complete elimination of the chiropractic profession. The AMA formed the Committee on Quackery under its DOI, Department of Investigation. So, violent opposition here. What do you think? Okay? So, at first, they didn't know what to do about it. Okay? And they just thought, oh, yeah, that's just a little. But all of a sudden, chiropractic started getting very, 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 very popular. Okay? And at this point in time, when this came out, it wasn't even legal in Massachusetts yet. Chiropractic wasn't legalized in Massachusetts, I think, until the early 70s, like 71 or 72. Okay, and that's why, like, if you ever look along the border of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, there's a lot of chiropractors, because what happens is people used to come across the border into New Hampshire because it was legal in New Hampshire. Okay, so they would come across before it actually got legalized in Massachusetts. So the thing is, you have to understand, there is a lot of opposition to chiropractic in that sense. Okay, so what happened was there was a lot of research done by B.J. Palmer, the developer of chiropractic, and he had a sanitarium, which was basically a home for those that many years ago that were mentally challenged. That was one of the most successful sanitariums, Clearview Sanitarium. There's a lot of these things that you can look at, and the studies that he did. So this was the opposition that we had to come up against. Okay, and so that's why sometimes people ask why chiropractors have this sort of attitude about things, because of this. Okay, especially the old timers. The newer ones, it's changed, but still there's a lot that goes on, because they try to put us into that little site, that little compartment of pain. Okay, because those are the big things. In 1966, the AMA adopted a resolution calling chiropractic an unscientific cult. And it's crazy. You read the opinion. You know, it was sent to 56 medical boards, you know, and under the, it was just crazy the way they went through this stuff. They systematically tried to beat down chiropractic. And then what they did was they put a book in the medical schools, in their libraries. So if people looked to research chiropractic, the librarian would lead them to this book. At your own, the case against chiropractic from six. So that's what the medical. I mean, and many old-time medical doctors were like, "Oh, they're quacks." I mean, who's ever heard that? Has anybody ever heard? Yeah, I mean, like some of the old, they're like, "Oh no, don't go to a chiropractor." You know, and they still, to this day, their first thing is medication. Okay, and then they send you to PT, or they send you to, you know, something, or they give you a shot. And there's always time and place for all that stuff. I'm not saying that it's not necessary, but the chiropractic usually, oh, you want to go to a chiropractor? Go ahead. You know, it's sort of like, thanks, you know. But the thing is, you guys have heard otherwise because people have referred you here. You've been to chiropractors, you've understand. But this is what chiropractic was going through back then. Okay, and still to this day, there's like these little things, innuendos that you sort of sit there and you say, like, where did that come from? Wilk versus the AMA, on September 25th, 1987, Getzendanner, which was the judge, issued her opinion that the AMA had violated Section 1 of the Sherman Antitrust Act and that it had engaged in unlawful conspiracy and restraint of trade to contain and eliminate the chiropractic profession. Okay, so this is not me saying it. This is a court. You can look this stuff up, okay? You can look this stuff up. I mean, this is how far they went, and there was a ruling placed against them, okay, that showed what happened. So now all of a sudden the floodgates were starting to open up, and different things were coming up. Dr. David Eddy talked about all the journals and everything that he was talking about, and the biggest thing here. David Eddy was a professor in Duke University, and he told a conference in Manchester, which was in England, only 1% of the articles in medical journals are scientifically sound, and partly because many treatments have never been assessed at all. It is true as the total quality management could tell us that every defect is a treasure. So the thing is, you know, you can go back, I'm not going to read, but this is a big thing that he was talking about. There are perhaps 30,000 biomedical journals in the world. Sorry about the mistype. And they have grown steadily by 7% a year, right? Since the 17th century, yet only about 15% of the medical interventions are supported by solid scientific evidence. So what are the two things you get from that? Only 1% of the articles in medical journals are scientifically sound, and only 15% of the medical interventions are supported by solid scientific evidence. It is important that what you read, you make sure it's valid. Okay, I'm a big research guy. I love reading research. But the thing is, sometimes the validity of the stuff is really questionable. And different journals get different rankings, okay, as to how hard it is to get into them. And this is really important thing to this is a really important thing to understand because they say that we're unscientific. I can throw research after study after study of study that what we're doing works, okay, but yet they still say that what we're doing is unscientific. So it's important to understand that what we do is there. In 1918, so this one I'm not going to go through the numbers, but the big important part of this, in 1918, what was going on? The big flu epidemic, right? The Spanish flu. I was just watching something on TV about. I didn't realize how many people it killed. Okay, the Spanish flu epidemic killed, I mean, millions of people in our country. Okay, but in 1918 in Iowa, what they did was they legalized chiropractic because they were finding that the people that were going to the chiropractors were less likely to have adverse reactions and die. They had less percentage of people that died than opposed to the people that were going to medical doctors. And it happened in New York, and they did all these research studies. If you want the numbers, I can go through that. But the important point is that's why chiropractic was not legalized because of back pain. Oh yeah, back pain is an epidemic. Yeah, it is an epidemic in our country. Okay, it was legalized because it got better results than the medical society did. So going back to what you talked about, the colds, less colds. Well, there's got to be something to that. There's studies out there that show that you increase CD4 counts when you get adjusted by about 48%. There's study after study that shows that the immune system is boosted. Does that mean you're not going to get a cold? No, I'm not saying I have the cure for the common cold. What I'm saying is you're going to be better off because you want to do everything you possibly can to stay healthy. Okay? I mean, if you work 80 hours in a weekend, guess what? Your body is going to be a little exhausted, yeah? You're going to be more susceptible to getting sick. Okay, someone who runs an Ironman for about 48 hours afterwards is really susceptible, really very, very susceptible to getting sick because their immune system drops because they're putting so much stress on the body over that one day of race. Okay, and if you know to complete an Ironman, you have to get in before 12 o'clock. You start at 7 o'clock in the morning, they give you 17 hours. Okay, that's a long race. That's a long day. Now the pros, obviously, it's not that long. Okay, they finish it very quickly, but even them, their bodies are the immune function. So you gotta look at, you gotta give your body a chance, right? Dr. Henry Windsor, I've talked about this quite a bit, but he was at the University of Pennsylvania. He carried out experiments in a series of 3 studies. He dissected a total of 75 human, 22 cat cadavers, and there was 221 structures other than the spine were found diseased. Of these, 212 were from the same sympathetic nerve segments as the vertebra in the curvature. What does that mean? That he found that if he traced the nerve from where there was a curvature or subluxation in the spine to the end organ that it was attached to, he found a pathological change in that. When he did this study, they were trying to sort of disprove chiropractic. This was in the early 20s. Okay, but in every case, he found some sort of disease. In every case. So the thing is, you look at these charts that we have up in here, that's where those charts sort of come from. Is it an exact, if someone tells you that's an exact science, a neurologist, anybody, I'll tell you they're lying. Because you know what? We're all different. We all respond differently. We don't respond the same. Yes, you can get sort of an idea, okay? But it doesn't mean that it's going to be exact, okay? So for what works for Don may not work for Marie, okay? I mean, just look at them. They're 2 totally opposite ends of the spectrum, so those, so those are the things that we look at. And then, and this just shows what he found and where he found those curvatures in the spine, or the subluxations as we call them. Dr. Perot was a cancer doctor in New York. He was the chief of cancer prevention at New York's Preventive Medicine. In 1975, Perot's team measured 107 individuals who had received long-term chiropractic care. The chiropractic patients were shown to have 200% greater immune competence than the people who had not received chiropractic care, and a 400% greater immune competence than people with cancer or serious diseases. Why is this not studied? This is not a huge number. 107 is not a huge number, but it should be enough to say to somebody, hey, we should research this. Why isn't it researched?
Because the drug companies aren't doing it.
You want like this, because it's not financially viable for a lot of companies. Okay, but this is a guy from cancer research, right? So he's talking about this stuff. I mean, and they're reviewing this stuff. TK vitamin. So most of you have been here at least 6 months, yes, or close to it, all right? Maybe not Tegan. No, okay, just a few of you have been. Okay, so the longer you're under care, the last study shows, the healthier you're going to be immune competence-wise, right? This, every time I make my recommendations for wellness care, this is why I make the recommendation of once a week. Because Vitamin found that the slightest hypomobility in diarthrodial joints, so the joints in the spine, could cause joint degeneration within 5 to 7 days, so 5 to 7 days, which becomes irreversible in 2 to 3 weeks. Following 5 weeks of joint fixation, it may take 18 months of care was required for optimal healing. So I didn't go to a chiropractor till I was in my 20s. So I had a lot of catching up to do. Because, man, I had healed compression fractures, shoulder dislocations, hurt my back lifting, a lot of things. Okay, so if you didn't get adjusted since you were born, you got a lot of catching up to do. And this is why I recommend it, because the thing is, if you don't take care of it at least every couple of weeks, okay, you're gonna have scar tissue that forms. It may not hurt. Please understand, it may not hurt, but scar tissue is forming. I mean, the studies show it. Okay, and then Medicare. This is a quote out of their book. Care that seeks to prevent disease, promote health, and enhance the quality of life is not considered medically necessary. You're laughing, but this is right out of their codes. This is right out of their understanding. And this is what the insurance companies follow. So don't expect them to, because unless you're in pain, it's not medically necessary. If it's promoting and enhancing your life, then, it's not medically necessary. Okay, this is scary to me. This is really scary to me, because this is why people don't get the care they need. This is why people don't do that. And that's where the difference has come for chiropractic over the years, because now we understand the importance of why it is to get adjusted. Okay, what the long-term benefits are. Why it is that when people, the longer they're under care, the healthier they are. Does it mean they never have aches and pains? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that, okay? It just means that overall your body is going to respond better to things. Okay, it's like watering a plant, okay? It needs soil, it needs water, and it needs light. Well, most do, at least. Most do, unless it's in the bottom of the sea. But if you think about it, okay? If you think about it, okay, it needs water, and regardless of what you give it, it's going to need those three things, okay? And if you take one away, okay, it'll be okay for a while, but it's going to start decaying faster. Take away water from a plant. See how quickly it dehydrates. Same thing happens to your body if you're not drinking water. Okay? Take away its food. See how fast, okay, which one is fast? Probably the water. If you take away the water, it'll probably dehydrate faster than if you just took away its soil. Maybe, I don't know. Try it. It's an experiment. But it needs all of those things to stay healthy, regardless of what condition it is. I mean, do you wait till the plant wilts to give it water? Some people do. Or do you give it the water on a consistent basis, like weekly? You give it water weekly so it stays vibrant and healthy. Duh. I mean, we do those things for everybody, everything else except ourselves. So those are the things that we're looking at. And that's where this study comes in. Right? This is patients under long-term chiropractic care, 52 to 312 weeks, so 1 to 6 years, had higher levels of thiol, which is indicative of the ability of the body to repair DNA. Repair DNA. Repair things that are going on in your body. Very, very important. And one of the last studies that I just want to show to you, this was the most recent one. Ralph Keeney, the School of Business at Duke University, analyzed the relationship between personal decisions and premature deaths in the United States. The analysis indicates that over 1 million of the 2.4 million deaths in 2000 can be attributed to personal decisions and could have been avoided if readily available alternative choices were made. Separate analyses indicates 46% of the deaths due to heart disease, 66% of cancer deaths are attributable to personal decisions. About 55% of all deaths for age 15 to 64 are attributable to personal decisions, and over 94% of the deaths are attributable to personal decisions in the death of an individual making the decisions. So what is this saying? It's saying, you know what? People are making poor decisions, and the biggest cause of death is stupid choices. Let's be real with this. Stupid decisions and choices are what's causing our health to diminish. And people are like, oh, I'll just take something and get better. It ain't going to work that way. It just doesn't happen. Okay, you need to start thinking about the choices and decisions you're making. This is the most recent. It's showing this stuff. They meta-analyzed all this stuff. And it's never too late, because now is the time that you can choose to change your life. What you did before may define where you are now, okay? But you can still work on changing it. Is it too late for some? It's never really too late. The difference is, how is the quality of your life going to change? So choose now. If you want copies of the studies, there's a lot of information that I threw at you guys, but it's really important to understand. Remember the fine points. What choices are you going to make from this point on that's going to help you stay healthier? And understand that chiropractic was on the forefront of pushing this stuff, because now chiropractic understands that long-term chiropractic care, and they've been talking about long-term chiropractic care for years, but long-term chiropractic care now is getting more and more headway in understanding that people can stay healthier, and it should be an important part of their health. Thank you very much for coming. You guys have a great night. Thank you, Marie. You just hit stop, and then